Automation is the most powerful economic force in the modern world, strong enough to replace whole industries with code. While this is disruptive enough, it pushes us towards an even more powerful and dark idea. A concept that might delete our economic reality itself. Universal basic income. Universal basic income in a nutshell. UBI appears when an extraordinary amount of free capital is given to every single citizen. If you were to fall into a UBI system, nothing bad would happen until well after you crossed its outer border. The inflation horizon. You can imagine this as playing a game of Monopoly where the banker hands out $1,000 extra on every single turn. As you play, imperceptibly, prices get higher and higher. Even if you cannot see the crash yet, you could save your cash until without even noticing it, you cross the point of no return. No matter how much money you receive now, the market will pull your purchasing power towards zero. Nothing escapes this economic gravity. This absolute reliance completely separates a UBI society from the rest of human history. We cannot enter this new era unless we are willing to never return. Currencies radiate their purchasing power away, like a hot pot on a stove losing its water as steam. This is called hyperinflation. In the process of paying everyone, the system might delete something fundamental. Value. What is value? Value is nothing tangible. It is typically understood as a property of scarcity. Imagine a piece of paper. Back it with human effort and you get $1. Back it with a desperate government decree and you get a meaningless receipt. The paper is the same. What changes is the value. Hand this newly printed paper to millions of people, and we get an economic shockwave. The basic building blocks of the economy are the same and do not care if they are part of a noble safety net or a political trap. Without scarcity, every dollar would be the same, meaningless. To understand why free money might break the world, we have to look at what money actually is. Imagine an empty battery designed to hold a charge of human time. You work for an hour. You charge it. You buy groceries. You discharge it. Fiat currency is just a vast grid of these batteries, powered by our collective belief that the charge is real. What happens when a government hands out fully charged batteries to every citizen, every month, without anyone doing the work to charge them? At first, it feels like a miracle. In the early days of a universal basic income, your bank account looks incredibly healthy. You go to the supermarket with a sense of relief. But there is a mechanical problem hiding beneath the surface. Supply chains run on human sweat. If millions decide they no longer need to drive delivery trucks or stock shelves because their needs are met, physical goods stop moving. The economic batteries are full, but there is nothing left to buy. The store owner, seeing fewer goods arrive and customers flush with cash, does the only logical thing. They raise prices. It happens slowly. Then all at once, your $2,000 check quickly buys what $200 used to buy. The numbers go up, but reality shrinks. This mathematical trap is only the outer edge of the danger. The true dark side of universal basic income is what it does to the human mind. We are wired to solve problems, to strive against resistance, and to build. When you remove the struggle for baseline survival, you might accidentally delete human ambition. Imagine waking up knowing your existence is entirely guaranteed by a massive, untouchable machine. You do not have to work, but you also cannot climb higher. The monumental taxation required to fund this endless system swallows up the value you tried to create. Instead of a utopian society of free artists, we might find ourselves trapped in a psychological waiting room. We become a vast, dependent underclass. kept alive by a state apparatus that controls the thermostat of our lives. If the entity feeding you changes the rules, you have zero leverage. This is where the trap snaps shut. Imagine a near future where an army of super-intelligent algorithms has permanently retired 80% of the human workforce. The grand solution presented is a continuous flood of trillions of newly printed dollars. A supposed financial utopia where your baseline survival is guaranteed. But this utopia is built on a catastrophic fault line. The illusion of free wealth threatens to trigger the total collapse of the working class. When software writes the code, machines drive the trucks, and synthetic voices handle customer service, your labor becomes worthless to the open market. The economy completely severs its connection to human input. What does this extreme detachment actually look like for you? Picture your standard morning routine. You wake up in a modest apartment you will never be able to own. Because the endless influx of universal cash has driven real estate prices into the stratosphere. Every corporation and landlord knows exactly how much base income is deposited into your account. They dynamically adjust their prices to absorb every single cent of that guaranteed check. Your deepest ambition to save for a home, to build an independent business, or to simply climb a ladder of personal progress is suffocated. You are trapped under the weight of a bizarre economy where everyone has cash, but nobody possesses actual purchasing power. Let us freeze the narrative and look at the brutal math behind this scenario. To hand every adult citizen a modest check of $2,000 a month, a government must conjure several trillion dollars out of thin air every single year. This is not wealth generated from a balanced system of societal taxation. It is an astronomical deficit that entirely dwarfs the national budgets for defense, infrastructure, and healthcare combined. When a state simply prints this colossal volume of currency, it fundamentally breaks the definition of money. The numerical supply expands into infinity, while the actual pool of physical goods stagnates. This is the inescapable baseline reality of inflation. You are not receiving $2,000 of true value. You are being handed a mathematically diluted ration coupon inside an economic engine that is rapidly burning through its last reserves of oxygen. Think of it like a never-ending game of Monopoly where the banker hands out $1,000 to every player on every turn. At first, everyone feels rich. You can buy anything, and the fear of bankruptcy vanishes. But quickly, the board runs out of properties. Because everyone has infinite cash, the price of a single greenhouse skyrockets to $1 million. The money becomes just colored paper. You are a millionaire, but you cannot afford to rent a single space. Now, imagine the day the first nationwide universal payouts hit every bank account. The initial reaction is pure euphoria. Millions suddenly have breathing room. But within weeks, the silent mechanics of the market react. Grocery chains notice the massive spike in demand and realize their physical supply lines cannot keep up. So, the price of bread doubles, then triples. A few months later, lease agreements expire. Landlords, perfectly aware of the exact amount of your government check, adjust your rent to swallow that new income. The free money evaporates into the system before you can build wealth, leaving you exactly where you started. Only now, the barrier to getting ahead is infinitely higher. Finally, we arrive at the deepest trap of this system. We must look at what this does to the human mind. We are creatures built for friction. We derive our fundamental meaning from overcoming obstacles, honing skills, and contributing value. If a central machine provides everything you need to physically exist, but the hyperinflated economy prevents you from achieving upward mobility, you are effectively paralyzed. You become entirely dependent on a state apparatus that holds absolute power over your survival. With a single keystroke, The entity that feeds you could sever your lifeline if the rules change. You have surrendered all your leverage. In the end, we have to ask ourselves a terrifying question. If we successfully delete the struggle for survival, do we accidentally delete the human spirit along with it? A perfectly safe cage is still a cage. And a life entirely stripped of the necessity to build might just be a life stripped of its